In the mid-1800s, drilling for oil was a pure gamble. Men flocked to muddy, makeshift towns, desperate to strike it rich. They were pulling crude oil out of the ground so fast that a staggering 20% of it simply leaked away into the dirt. The product reaching consumers was just as volatile. Early kerosene was wildly inconsistent. People were terrified to light their homes because the fuel in their lamps was literally exploding in their living rooms. Far from this chaos, a 10-year-old boy named John D. Rockefeller was learning a very different set of rules. His mother, a devout Baptist, taught him to pinch every penny. His father, Devil Bill, was a literal snake oil salesman who frequently vanished, only to return with rolls of cash. Bill proudly admitted to cheating his own sons, claiming he wanted to make them sharp. That harsh upbringing created a terrifyingly observant child. John tracked every single cent he earned, saved, or gave to his church in a pocket-sized book he called Ledger A. To him, capitalism was a strict, solvable math problem. When a young Rockefeller finally entered the Cleveland oil business during the Civil War, he watched drillers lighting cigars with $100 bills. He remained entirely unfazed. He saw their complete lack of discipline. Rockefeller looked past the mud of the oil fields and focused on the refining process. Success required forcing mathematical discipline onto a wasteful, lawless market. Rockefeller bypassed the gamble of drilling entirely. He targeted the absolute choke point of the industry, refining. He knew that if he could process the crude oil even 1% more efficiently than the next guy, he would eventually consume them. He called the company Standard Oil. The name was a psychological guarantee to an anxious public. If you bought Standard, your lamp wouldn't blow up. You were buying safety. Behind closed doors, his tactics were merciless. In 1872, he launched a 4-month campaign of corporate expansion known as the Cleveland Massacre. He invited local rivals into his office, sat them down, and opened his private books. This chart shows exactly what his competitors saw. He used razor-thin margins as a weapon, proving their refineries were losing money every day they competed with him. Then came the offer: take Standard Oil stock and join the winning side, or stay on the tracks and wait for the train to hit you. He left them no logical choice but surrender. He swallowed 22 of his 26 competitors in a single season. The foundation of his early empire relied entirely on the inescapable logic of a superior spreadsheet. With Cleveland conquered, Rockefeller turned his formula toward logistics. To guarantee his oil dominated the nation, he struck secret deals with the 3 biggest railroads in the country, securing massive shipping rebates. This flowchart illustrates his invention, the drawback. Whenever rivals paid a railroad to ship their oil, a percentage of that fee went directly to Rockefeller. By the 1880s, this rigged structure allowed Standard Oil to control 90% of U.S. oil, wrapped in a trust. His iron grip made him enemies. Journalist Ida Tarbell watched her own father get pushed out of the industry during the Cleveland Massacre. She spent 2 years meticulously tracking Rockefeller's midnight agreements and exposed his operation in a devastating magazine series. The public backlash was immediate and fierce. Rockefeller faced a daily avalanche of death threats. The relentless stress caused severe alopecia, stripping every hair from his body and leaving him with the skeletal appearance Tarbell described as a living mummy. Yet his mind remained unnervingly calm. During intense depositions with top lawyers, he sat quietly, bouncing a rubber ball, and offered vague, "I don't recall" answers that frustrated the entire courtroom. He had solved the equation for corporate dominance, but he ignored the human variables. That blind spot provoked a fury that ultimately forced the federal government to intervene. In 1911, the Supreme Court swung the hammer. They ruled Standard Oil an illegal monopoly and ordered it dismantled into 34 separate entities. The country celebrated, assuming they had finally slain the dragon. But Rockefeller understood the math better than the courts did. As the owner of a massive percentage of the original trust, he was instantly handed shares in all 34 of these new companies, including the ancestors of Exxon and Chevron. And the timing was impeccable. Right as the monopoly was shattered, the internal combustion engine hit the streets. A former byproduct of the refining process called gasoline was suddenly in massive demand. This diagram illustrates the resulting surge in value. As these 34 newly independent companies were forced to compete in a booming automotive market, their stock values shot upward. Because he held massive stakes across the board, Rockefeller's personal wealth doubled. He became the richest human being to ever walk the earth. Adjusted for inflation, his fortune stood at over $400 billion. He spent his final decades attempting to buy back his reputation. He handed out dimes to children on the street and gave away over $500 million to fund medical research and establish massive institutions like the University of Chicago. Rockefeller's legacy defines a specific kind of power, the ability to understand the system's equations well enough to own the system itself.